When the day of Pentecost had come, they were all together in one place. That opening line from our reading from the Acts of the Apostles has struck me today with a renewed force. And no, it's not because we are not together. This is not just another lament about the lack of our congregating. It is because on previous days of Pentecost, I have probably focused on the work of the Spirit in the life of the individual believer, and how we as Christians are inspired and animated and equipped by the indwelling of the Spirit of God in us. And all that is, of course, so important. But as I read again that account of the first Pentecost this year, I was struck by the words, they were all together in one place. The work of the Spirit in the life of the individual believer is completely inseparable from our communal life, our being all together. In his book on the way of St. Benedict, Rowan Williams says that our committed life together matters more than any individual search for spiritual fulfillment, that the attention to one another which the common life requires, and the attention to God which is the heart of contemplation, are inseparably bound together. It really matters how we are with each other. And the word we use for that divinely inspired common life is fellowship. Now, the word fellowship can feel such a limp and inadequate word, conjuring up thoughts of weak coffee and 6-week-old biscuits. But fellowship is how God incarnates himself in the life of the church. When 2 or 3 are gathered together, said Jesus, there am I among them. The word used by Luke in the Acts of the Apostles to describe the common life shared by the early church is koinonia. It means fellowship, partnership, sharing, belonging, participation, communion. These early Christians, we're told, devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, the koinonia, to the breaking of bread and to the prayers. All who believed were together and had all things in common in koinonia. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all the people. And day by day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. That is a picture of fellowship, of koinonia. And maybe the church is being called upon to rediscover the richness of that koinonia, to explore new levels of human relatedness, to be more fully a unity, a body in which God by his Spirit may dwell. It is that oneness that connects us to one another, even though we are not able to be all together in one place. Jesus prayed that we may be one, and he prayed that the world may know about him. Our oneness, our unity, the quality of our fellowship is what should reveal to others our identity as Christians, as followers of Christ. See, said Tertullian, writing at the end of the 2nd century, see how these Christians love one another. Love, our love for one another should be our hallmark. It is, Tertullian said, mainly the deeds of a love so noble that lead many to put a brand upon us. It is by our love for one another, by our unity, that people will know that we belong to God. God wants us, calls us to bear witness to him, that the world may know. Much is made of the potential of our silent witness to Christ. St. Francis allegedly talked of preaching the gospel, but of only using words when we have to. For most of the time, our lives, our common lives, should do the talking. Jesus himself spoke of our lives shining, that people will see what we do and then glorify God. It is your life, the way you live in community and the way that you relate to others, that will speak to others of your faith and of the God in whom you believe. Austin Farrer once spoke of the priestly task in terms of being a sort of walking sacrament, a token of Christ wherever we are. Our lives should speak of Christ, should reveal Christ, should draw people to Christ. our love totally selfless, our joy deep and undiminished by the world, our peace free from anxiety, our patience showing no end to our tether, our kindness abounding in generosity, our goodness pure and unsullied, our faithfulness undying, our gentleness full of grace, and our self-control never once letting us down. These qualities should be evident in us, such that when people see us, they will see Christ, as if we were a walking sacrament, a sign and symbol of Christ's very presence. And we do not do that alone. We are all together. And to a people who, on the one hand, struggle to live with those in their household, and on the other hand, long for an end to social distancing, who struggle to live with each other and struggle to live apart, maybe it is to such people as these that the example of our common life as Christians and the wisdom drawn from 2,000 years of koinonia is the greatest gift that we can offer. It was Alistair MacIntyre back in 1981 who said that we should be concentrating on the construction of local forms of community within which civility and the intellectual and moral life can be sustained through the new dark ages which are already upon us. As we emerge from this crisis, and as we rebuild and reform the church, maybe now is the time to put the emphasis on community, on our fellowship, our common life, on being all together. Maybe it is through offering the world a vision of communal living that we might enable them to grow in their awareness of the God whose Spirit stimulates our fellowship and inspires our love for one another. There is a story that's told of an old monastery that had fallen upon hard times. Centuries earlier, it had been a thriving monastery where many dedicated monks lived and worked and had great influence on the realm. But now, only 5 monks lived there, and they were all over 70 years old. This was clearly a dying order. A few miles from the monastery lived an old hermit who many thought was a prophet. One day, as the monks agonized over the impending demise of their order, they decided to visit the hermit to see if he might have some advice for them. Perhaps he would be able to see the future and show them what they could do to save the monastery. The hermit welcomed the 5 monks to his hut. But when they explained the purpose of their visit, the hermit could only commiserate with them. "Yes, I understand how it is," said the hermit. "The spirit has gone out of the people. Hardly anyone cares much for the old things anymore." "Is there anything you can tell us," the abbot inquired of the hermit, "that would help us save the monastery?" "I'm sorry," said the hermit. "I don't know how your monastery can be saved. The only thing that I can tell you is that one of you is an apostle of God." The monks were both disappointed and confused by the hermit's cryptic statement. They returned to the monastery wondering what the hermit could have meant by the statement, "One of you is an apostle of God." For months after their visit, the monks pondered the significance of the hermit's words. "One of us is an apostle of God," they mused. Did he actually mean one of us monks here at the monastery? That's impossible. We're all too old. We are too insignificant. On the other hand, what if it's true? And if it's true, which one of us is it? Do you suppose he meant the abbot? Yes, if he meant anyone, he probably meant the abbot. He's been our leader for more than a generation. On the other hand, he might have meant Brother Thomas. Certainly Brother Thomas is a holy man, full of wisdom and light. He couldn't have meant Brother Elred. Elred gets crotchety at times and is difficult to reason with. On the other hand, he is almost always right. Maybe the hermit did mean Brother Elred, but surely he could not have meant Brother Philip. Philip is so passive, so shy, a real nobody. Still, he's always there when you need him. He's loyal and trustworthy. Yes, he could have meant Philip. Of course, the hermit didn't mean me. He couldn't possibly have meant me. I'm just an ordinary person. Yet, suppose he did. Suppose I am an apostle of God. Oh God, not me. I couldn't be that much for you, or could I? As they contemplated in this manner, the old monks began to treat each other with extraordinary respect on the off chance that one of them might actually be an apostle of God, and on the off chance that each monk himself might be the apostle spoken of by the hermit. Each monk began to treat himself with extraordinary respect. Because the monastery was situated in a beautiful forest, many people came there to picnic on its tiny lawn and to walk on its paths, and every now and then they would go into the tiny chapel to meditate. As they did so, without even being conscious of it, they sensed the aura of extraordinary respect that now began to surround the 5 old monks and seemed to radiate out of them, permeating the atmosphere of the place. There was something strangely attractive, even compelling about it. Hardly knowing why, people began to come back to the monastery more frequently, to picnic, to play, to pray. They began to bring their friends to show them this special place, and their friends brought their friends. As more and more visitors came, some of the younger men started to talk with the old monks. After a while, one asked if he could join them, then another and another. Within a few years, the monastery had once again become a thriving order, and thanks to the hermit's gift, a vibrant centre of light and spirituality throughout the realm. On this day of Pentecost, maybe God is saying that you and those with whom you serve are apostles of God. So may God bless us all together. Amen.